kind of learning that new way to interact with nature. So if this is your first time attending one of our webinars, you can catch up on all of our previous ones on our Bird Conservancy YouTube channel. And if you have questions that come up during the webinar, please use the chat box and we will get all your questions as they come up, or we'll do a question and answer at the end. And like Tyler mentioned, we are recording this, so don't worry about scrambling to take notes or anything like that. It'll be up on YouTube this afternoon, and I'll send out the link to all of you. And I'll also send out resources and a PDF of all the slides as well. So as birders, a lot of us pay attention to identification, life lists, natural history. And today I want us to use that passion that we have to connect with birds in a new way. So let's get started. Little housekeeping stuff. We are using Zoom as our platform today. I'm sure a lot of us have used Zoom at some point in this past year or so, but if it's your first time, it does take a little playing around with. So I want to point out that your video and microphone should be off or muted because it helps everyone's technology run a little smoother. This can be done if you move your mouse to the bottom of the screen and make sure the microphone and the camera button have a red line through them. When I'm in full screen, your screen should be as well. If you need to exit that, you can push escape or click the exit full screen at the top. Finally, at the bottom of your window, you'll see the chat button, which I've circled in green in the presentation window. You can click that chat button and that should dock the chat right next to the presentation as shown here. And when you chat a message or respond to any of our questions or things like that, make sure you're sending it to everyone so we can all see your input. And we'll be using the chat window as our primary way to interact throughout this webinar. So let's give that a try. It's always fun to get to know everyone who is in our programs with us a little bit better. So in that chat window, if you could please type in where you're from, how many folks are watching with you today, and what your favorite bird is today. We started this webinar series last April, and we've seen our reach grow far outside of Colorado, so it's really always exciting to learn where people are tuning in from. Awesome. Oh, Nebraska. Oh, I love sharp-shinned hawks. Awesome. Paula, I also love our good old corvids. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Yes, keep sharing. Oh, pygmy nuthatches. Oh, I'd love to see one of those today. Awesome. Well, really quick, I'm going to just share a little bit about your presenters today. Again, my name is Kelsey, and I'm the Outreach and Volunteer Coordinator for Bird Conservancy. And my favorite bird today is the common raven. And really, whenever I see a raven, it just makes my heart happy. And that's the kind of energy I wanted to bring into our writing workshop today. And as mentioned earlier, joining me today is Tyler Cash, our Camp and Community Coordinator. He'll be monitoring the chat and answering questions as well as relaying them to me at the end. And today, Tyler's favorite bird is the hooded merganser. I have to say that hooded merganser is looking quite handsome. Right. And a little bit about Bird Conservancy before we move on. Our mission is to conserve birds and their habitats, and we do that with a three-pronged approach of science, stewardship, and education. And we work with those three different things really to effectively accomplish our mission of conserving birds and their habitat in whatever way we can, be it through monitoring and data analysis or working hands-on the land with landowners, or with education and really inspiring that next generation. And a lot of people ask us, Okay, so you're the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies. Why birds? You could be the Spider Conservancy of the Rockies. That would be cool too. But birds hold a special place and help us accomplish so much in the world of conservation. Birds are super accessible, meaning that no matter where you are, be it in the middle of the city, the middle of the country, or anywhere in between, you can find a bird, which makes them very accessible for everybody. They also provide really valuable environmental indicators, meaning since they're so sensitive, they can tell us when something's out of whack in the environment or in the habitat and something needs to change. And they also provide really good ecosystem services, such as eating pesky insects and things like that, as well as seed dispersal. You know, eat a berry, fly around, poop the berry seed out somewhere else, and boom, you've got a tree. It's very exciting. But the one we're going to be focusing on today is that birds are so inspirational. Artwork to engineering, architecture, birds have just inspired us for ages and for so long. So today, we're really going to focus on that, using birds as inspiration. With this webinar today, we're going to share several examples of nature writing. I'm going to give you a few prompts to lead you on this creative journey today. And I really don't want anyone to feel pressured to write a certain way or to do anything that they're not comfortable with. The best thing about nature writing is that there's no wrong way to do it. So you can write prose, poetry, lists, doodle, sketch. This is the time to do whatever works for you. And as we were putting this webinar together, I really wanted to do a writing workshop because, you know, when I started birding, it seemed really intimidating. A lot of people were so scientific and so analytical. It didn't make me feel like I had a place in the conservation field as more of a humanities kind of person. However, everyone learns and approaches the world differently with different perspectives and ideas and passions. And it took me a while to learn that my passion for poetry, my passion for birds, and for education, sharing it with everyone, can all work really well together. So I'm excited to share a new perspective or a new way of thinking about our relationship with nature with all of you today. So are there any questions before we get started?
Looks like we're good to go. There's just a lot of talk of spiders in the chat window right now, but
Yeah, I knew I probably shouldn't have brought that up, but it's okay. It's okay. There are no spiders here. It'll be okay, Emily. All right. So first things first. Ooh. What is nature writing? Nature writing is really sharing the natural history of anything nature-y with the reader, typically through nonfiction essays, poems, books, and typically using the first person I perspective. However, it can be whatever you want it to be, and it can be about whatever you connect with. So I like birds, I like spiders. Maybe my nature writing today will be about our cuddly arthropod friends. Who knows? But it can really be about whatever you want it to be. There's no wrong way to do this. Some examples of nature writers include naturalists, anthropologists, poets, writers, really anyone who is observing the natural world. Some of my favorite nature writers include Lauren Eisley, Annie Dillard, Mary Oliver, Amy Nezukuntatil, Linda Hogan, Robin Wall Kimmerer, and more. That's just a very, very small list. But as we go into nature writing, remember this isn't necessarily like a scientific report, right? We want to use descriptive language. We want to create imagery. We want metaphors and similes and to create really that big picture. You don't want to write just about how cool that tree is. You want to write how cool that tree is and what it means for the entire ecosystem or for our entire world. So before we move any further, I would like everyone to take a few moments to get cozy. Grab your favorite pen, notebook, cup of tea, your dog. I know I've been trying to convince my cat to come sit on my lap this whole time. Really whatever you feel, whatever you need to feel comfortable in this space we're creating together. And as you do, oh dear, oh no, I'm so sorry. I promise I've used this platform before. Okay, and as you are getting cozy and comfortable, I want you to contemplate the question of what is your goal for the next hour, or what do you want to gain from this experience? And feel free to jot that down and or share in the chat, and let that sort of goal guide you as you respond to these prompts and get creative. My goal is to try and write a few things using metaphors or using animals or things in nature that I haven't written about before. So that's my goal for this hour. I'd love to hear yours. Finding inspiration is very important. And it's okay if you don't know what your goal is. It's a big question, and I probably should have prepared you for it a bit more, but it'll be okay. Yeah, I like that. You're embracing the journey. Gonna be great. Yes, finding that connection, brilliant. These are wonderful goals, everybody. Good job. Yeah, not just observations, telling a story. Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those goals. Keep them coming in. I am going to move on so that we have plenty of time to respond to prompts and actually get to some writing today. So, oh dear. Okay, there we go. Before we get to our first prompt, I'd like to share with you a nature poem by one of my favorite poets, Amy Nezukumtatil. And as we read through this, I'd really like you to focus on the images she creates and the feelings and emotions she conjures in you throughout this poem. So this is called Kansas Animalia from her collection Lucky Fish. I curtsy to the prairie turtle, running with all its might to catch the paint line on a country road. I pity the lone ostrich at the Wichita petting zoo, who plucks out her own feathers because they sold her mate to a place in Toledo. I cheer the prairie dog, who keeps watch on the outskirts of his town, knows exactly where to find a crunchy spider for dessert. Most of all, I sing for the two-headed calf who managed to live 3 whole days before it knelt beside its mama and sank into the mud. Praise the mud and its confusion with each quick slip of hoof. Praise the double song of sadness from its sleep-sloppy mouths. Praise the farmer who finally sussed it from the sledge and onto his back while the mama kicked the farmer until he split open. Praise the daughter who spied it all from her window. Years later, she'll still have nightmares about that day. The smell of linen and butter always bring her back. Praise each groan and sigh from her fretful sleep. Now, I know that's not exactly the most uplifting example to start with, but I chose it because of all the imagery she uses to get us to connect to each animal in that poem, each bit of nature in that poem, be that the turtle, the ostrich, or the calf. She really creates a scene with great brevity. I don't know about you guys, but as I heard about the turtle running with all its might to the middle of the country road, I knew exactly what that looked like in my head, and I had a whole story about that little turtle in my head already. So please keep in mind all the imagery she used, all that descriptive language, and how she really created a scene while still telling us about the realities of life for these creatures. So for our first prompt, keeping Nezukumtatil's imagery and creation of a scene in mind, we'll move on to our first prompt. We're going to use your senses to create a story about a bird. I have a bunch of pictures of birds for inspiration on the next slide. So you can use one of those guys, or you can look out your window, whatever works for you. But I really want you to focus on using sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch to really help you understand these birds. As always, toss in a couple sixth senses as well, feeling, thought, emotion, intention. Really, it's okay to anthropomorphize here, like give the bird thoughts, give the bird feelings. It's okay to do that. And really, there is no wrong way to respond to this prompt, but I want to challenge you to go deeper than straightforward facts. So instead of saying it's the third bird from the left, it's a great blue heron, they eat fish, cool. Try to focus on creating that scene and give the rest of us something really to dig into. For example, something like the long-legged bird creates ripples among the leaves, camouflaged and hungry. We get the same sort of information from it, but it's not as straightforward. It lets you be a bit more creative. So here are some birds. I didn't identify them for you, so you can make up names as you will or identify them as you'd like. But I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to write and reflect upon your bird. And if anybody at the end or as you're going wants to share their draft or share a line they came up with, please feel free. And because we can't do writing without some music, here are some bird songs to listen to. You're all doing great. We're going to keep writing for maybe about 5 more minutes. Wonderful. Let's all start wrapping up what we're writing. This doesn't have to be the end. These are just prompts to get you thinking. You can definitely come back to these later. We'd love to hear all about it. Tyler, did you want to unmute the two who wanted to share?
Yeah, definitely. So I have Vincent and Emily that would like to share. So Vincent, I will ask you to unmute And if you would like to share, you can go ahead. Vincent, are you able to unmute? All right, we'll come back to Vincent. Emily, I'll ask you to unmute.
Can I read my whole story?
Please.
Okay. The hawk lifts off the snowdrift, flapping his powerful wings once, twice, as he soars over the sunken-in snow prairies. His quick eyes sense the heat of a mouse scampering down to his warm burrow below the frozen earth. A shrill scream pierces the air as the hawk plunges down to the snow, claws flashing their razor tips in the weak sunlight. Snow scatters through the gray sky as seeking talons latch into warm fur. Triumphant, the victor rises through the clouds, blood-spattered claws gripping the limp trophy.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. I'm snapping for you. If everyone can snap behind their
Yeah.
screens. Thanks for
That's
sharing.
awesome.
Vincent, feel free to share.
This is my story. One day, Puffy the Puffin was swimming. When he saw a fish, he ate it. The end.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Vincent. I'm giving you snaps.
That was wonderful. Thank you both so much for sharing. I really liked how there was still very much a story, a scene, some action, but we learned all about those birds as well. We learned how the hawk was hunting and what the puffin wanted to do with his day and things just like that. Wonderful. Good job, everybody. Okay. Sorry. Promise I've used Zoom before. Have I? Come on. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. Now, before we jump into our next prompt, I would like to share with you yet another example of some nature writing. This comes from Lauren Eisley, a mid-20th century naturalist and anthropologist, from his collection, or his book, The Immense Journey. This book I have read so many times, it's falling apart at the seam, but every time I read it, I learn something new and I get something new from it too. So in this blurb here, he is talking about the mud skipper fish and how it has evolved from water to land. And he sums up this incredible creature he has been observing in the marsh as follows. Therein lies the hope of life. The old ways are exploited and remain, but new things come. New senses try the unfamiliar air. There are small scuttlings and splashings in the dark, and out of it come the first croaking, illiterate voices of the things to be, just as man once croaked and dreamed darkly in that tiny vesicular forebrain. Perpetually, now, we search and bicker and disagree. This eternal form eludes us, the shape we conceive as ours. Perhaps the old road through the marsh should tell us. We are one of many appearances of the thing called life. We are not its perfect image, for it has no image except life, and life is multitudinous and emergent in the stream of time. Now, Eisley could have kept it simple, right? He could say, hey, this is a really weird fish. It climbs trees to eat insects, and it might drown if it's kept underwater for too long. But instead, he tries to make a larger point about the strangeness of life and how it always changes and tries something new, and how this little mud skipper relates to us, the reader. He brings us that big picture. So for our next prompt, we're going to be starting with a fact or something you find interesting about a bird, and then we'll choose where you want to go with that starting point and what big picture you're writing is really about. So I like to put my first image or starting point on one side of my paper, and then the big point I'm trying to make on the other side. And then in between, you can kind of create a roadmap, things you want to mention, images, ideas, the way that you connect the start to the finish. For example, I could start with the idea of a baby bird in a nest, and maybe the big picture point that I want to make with writing about this baby bird in a nest is that how humans have a great space for compassion. And in between, I could list things like if a bird falls out of a nest, and that can be likened to a toddler falling and scraping their knee, and other things like that. And once I have my ideas and kind of that roadmap, I can start to put it together. So for your second prompt, I've created some lists here for you. You're welcome to use my lists. You definitely don't have to, but you can pick a start and you can pick a finish, and then figure out what goes in between. And that's where the really fun part is. You get to share your experiences, your perspectives, and have fun. And of course, feel free to share more starting point ideas and more big ideas in the chat. And let's take about another 10 minutes to write, doodle, and create a little bit. And this is about your halfway mark yet again, about 5 more minutes. Well, let's start putting those finishing touches, adding those final thoughts. I think Emily wanted to share. Would anybody else like to share? Again, it doesn't have to be complete or whole, just be ideas of where you're going. Tyler, would you like to unmute Emily if Emily
Yeah,
would like to share?
You read my mind. All right, Emily, I will ask you to unmute, and I can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Okay. The vicious beak of the blue jay, aiming towards the precious jewels in the wren's small nest. Screaming, the mother flies into the face of a creature much larger than herself. Her beak slashes, jabs, driving the intruder back from her treasured eggs. Really, what would any one of us do to protect the ones we love?
You're gonna make me cry too, Emily. Oh my gosh. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Emily, and thank you all that have shared in the chat. I know I've been going back and reading them, and I don't know about you, but the music definitely has helped me tune into my feeling like I'm in nature, which helps.
Perfect. The least we can do when we're virtual like this, right?
Yeah, and we do have someone else that would like to share, so I'm going to ask Megan to unmute.
On a yearly basis, sandhill cranes touch familiar earth after a northbound journey of thousands of miles to breed with a new mate or court yet again a mate of many years. Where do you travel to unroll scrolls of ballads and songs of love for those you hold dear? If we are ever-changing beings, mustn't we also find space and time to speak from these new mouths and hearts, dance on these aging feet?
Amazing. I can see the sandhill cranes dancing and courting in the fields all covered in mud. Oh, brought me back. Thank you for sharing so much, Megan.
All right, I could feel people are probably still writing or their wheels are turning. But thank you all for those that have shared. And if you didn't find the time to share with us today, I'm sure you can find a pet or a friend or a family member to share with later as well.
Please do. Wonderful. All right. Okay. First of all, you did it. Good job. You got creative and you kept in mind that big picture, the scenes, the imagery that you wanted to create, and you really focused on how to connect your reader to what you were passionate about. And that is the coolest thing. So now I would like you to return to your goal that you set earlier in our session. Did you accomplish what you set out to do today? If not, take a few moments to figure out some next steps you can take to keep this creativity going and help you accomplish that goal. And finally, I want to leave you with one of my favorite poems and a writing prompt for you to take into the rest of the week, the future, and your next outdoor adventure. So this is one of my favorite poems. You might have heard it before, but I'm going to read it again because, man, it always gets me. All right, this is Mary Oliver's Wild Geese from her collection Dreamwork. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. So, with that in mind, you don't have to be good. You just have to give it a try. You have a place. Your perspective is important. And anything you write and share is always appreciated and always good. So with going into the future, I'd like to give you a prompt or a way to engage with nature a little differently, like we've been doing this morning. Next time you go out and have an experience in nature, you go for a bike ride, a walk, you go birding, explore a new place, whatever. But next time you're out there, give yourself some time to sit down on the ground, in the grass, in the mud, on a rock, and write about your experiences there. Write about the birds that you hear, the creatures you see crawling through the dirt, anything like that. And keep in mind those big pictures, right? Help your reader feel your experience and help transport your reader, us, there. And always keep in mind what we can learn about nature and birds from your unique experience and perspective is invaluable. So, doing great. Finally, please keep in touch. If you want a reader, I always love reading and asking questions and offering feedback and things like that. So just send me a note. And I really hope you enjoyed our workshop/webinar today. I really did. If you are enjoying these types of webinars and programs and are in a position to help us keep programs like this going, you can support us at birdconservancy.org/donate. We are currently offering family bald eagle walks throughout January and February, and you can find more info on our website. Our next webinar will be Thursday, February 11th at 11 a.m. On the Great Backyard Bird Count, and that will be presented by our very own Tyler Cash. So again, thank you all so much. I hope you all stay happy and healthy and find time to connect with our natural world. And we will, of course, stick around to answer questions, hear things you wrote, whatever you want to share. So again, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey. That was so wonderful. It was really great to just kind of relax a little bit and think about writing, because I know I don't think about writing as much. And the best thing about nature writing or nature journaling or birding or anything that has to do with being creative, you don't have to be good. You just have to try. And I feel like that's a constant reminder for myself.
Absolutely.
We did have a question from Emily, if we're going to do any more of these writing webinars. I'll leave that up to you, Kelsey.
I would love to. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm glad to hear all this feedback, because we are very lucky in order that we can just kind of create these webinars and be creative, that our lovely boss and everyone at Bird Conservancy allows us to do these, because we really enjoy these webinars. So we will be sending a thank you email with the PDF, the recording of this, any questions that we need to be answered or resources that Kelsey mentioned, probably either later today or tomorrow. We hope to see any of you at an in-person program or attending any more of our virtual webinars that we do each month. So thank you all so much for joining, for sharing. We really appreciate all your feedback and your support.
Absolutely. Thank you. I did see a question about what bird was showing up on the screen. I'm not sure which slide we were on at that time, so we'll just go back and try and identify as many birds as we can. This will be fun. Those are geese, I'm guessing. Here we have a lovely golden crowned kinglet with his golden crown on full display. I don't know what the little bird in the bottom right is, but if anyone has a guess, I'd love to hear it.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know either.
It's a little brown bird.
The curse of stock photos. Anyway, thank you all so much. Are there any other questions or anything else we can do?
It looks like that's it. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Kelsey, for a wonderful presentation. We hope to see some of you at a future program or a future webinar. So thank you again so much. Here's a quick question about the Eagle Walks. Kelsey, do you want to answer that one?
What was the question?
When and where are our Eagle Walks?
A great question, Paula. Our Eagle Walks are taking place Fridays throughout January and February at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. They're an hour long, and they take place at Bar Lake State Park. So we'll go for a little walk and see all the eagles there. And you can find more information about that on our website. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. I'll put that screen back up so you can, if you have any questions at all, just send an email to education@birdconservancy.org and we can help you find a date and time that works for you to come see the eagles.
Awesome. So on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and find some time to get out in nature and do some riding or some birding or some sleeping, because taking naps in nature is great as well. So have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.